For a period of time here, this is what happens when Tom Brady and Bill Belichick continue to win Super Bowls. It chases me not only out of the continent, but out of the hemisphere as well. Ron Borges is here. He will remain in this hemisphere for the aftermath of all parades, all beer soakings and snowstorms. He's seen it all up there in Boston, many years at the Boston Globe, now at the Boston Herald, as well as at the Talk of Fame Network. Ron Borges joins us. And Ron, I was going to trap you last week there on Radio Row in Houston to talk to me about the legend of Tom Brady and Belichick. And I'm sure you would have said, well, wait till you see what he has up his sleeve this week. They're going to come back from 25 points down and win in overtime. Just when you think you've seen everything, right?
Right, just the way I predicted it, No, it's look, I've been I don't know what it is now, 35 or 36 Super Bowls. It was the most fantastic game that I've seen in that kind of a setting, in that kind of situation. It was obviously tremendous to come back from 25 down. Nobody thought it possible, quite frankly, including them. But that's not how they think. They don't think about it. Oh my God, we're 25 down. We can't. They think, okay, can we make a play right now? And then can we make another one? And can we make another one? See what happens. And my 10-year-old son was at the game. It was a good lesson for him. He thought all was lost. And I told him later, this is why you just keep playing, because you never know. Well, if you got Tom Brady, you got a better chance than most.
Books will be written about this, right? And
sure.
For me, look, I'll give all the Patriots all the credit in the world for hanging in, for all the things that you've said. And then there's the Falcons side of the story, right? That if you're writing that story and Matt Ryan, if he never gets back there, if Dan Quinn never gets back there, if Arthur Blank never gets back there, it's inconceivable. It's unforgivable. It's inexcusable. I mean, it's disgraceful, quite frankly, the things that happened to the Atlanta Falcons in that game that were given away, including the clock. Like, when I really look back and see...
The clock was terrible.
When I see Ryan snapping the ball with 3.5 minutes left to go in the third quarter, with 18 seconds left to go on the play clock and a live clock, I'm thinking, do you know who's sitting on the other sidelines? You have a 3.5 touchdown lead. Don't get cocky here. Don't think you need to have a 4 touchdown lead.
Right, and I think that's exactly, it reconfirmed for me my long-held belief, which irks some people around here because, Belichick is the king of all things to a lot of people around here. But I've always felt that players play and coaches watch. Coaches do more to lose the game than they do to win the game in many, many cases, and this was it once again on Sunday. Because, just to your point, you let the clock run down to the last second or two and you snap the ball. You get the ball 1st and 10 at the Patriot 22-yard line. The whole aim is to just make it a 2-touchdown game. They're going to have to score 2 touchdowns to beat you. So we're going to run this thing down. We're going to run the ball 3 times. We're going to take 45 seconds to do it every time. They're either going to use all their timeouts and be cooked, or they're not, and they're going to have 3 minutes to score 2 touchdowns on us because we're going to make a chip shot field goal. That's if you're thinking about the goal is to win the game. If you're doing what Kyle Shanahan said, we ran our offense. That's what we do. That's why Belichick beats all these guys. He doesn't do what we do. And the case in point was in that game. Initially, their intention was to pound away with LeGarrette Blount early in the game, but he realized quickly the guy's too slow for this defense. That defense is too fast. He's not going to gain any yards. And after he fumbled the ball, it was clear he was going to get hit from angles that he wasn't used to, and that could be a disaster. So what happened? They play 99 offensive snaps if you include penalties. LeGarrette Blount, their 1,200-yard rusher, played 17. I venture to say, Nestor, that 99% of coaches would not sit their 1,200-yard rusher down in the Super Bowl. They would say, he's our guy. We do what we do. Belichick says, we do what I have to do to win the game.
Well, Ron,
Atlanta didn't do that.
How many coaches would have kicked a field goal down 28-9 that late in the game? A lot of coaches would have said, look, I got to get a touchdown here to believe I'm in the game. Belichick said, well, I do math, and math is 8 plus 8 is 16, and that means 2 scores, and that means if we get the ball back, we'll worry about getting 2-point conversions later. Let's make this a 2-score game, even though 16 is an awkward number. And when they kicked that field goal, I thought to myself, 3/4 of the coaches in this league, given the circumstances, given the stakes, given it's all or nothing for the Super Bowl, and it's the last game of the year, they would have said, I need to get a touchdown here to feel like I'm in.
Well, sure, and that's what Atlanta did with the lead, with an 8-point lead at the Patriot 22-yard line. We got to score a touchdown. You know, they lose a yard on first down, running the ball. Oh, that's out the window. Now we got to throw the ball. Sack, holding call. Now you don't get the field goal. You don't get the 3 points. You don't get diddly, and you lose the game. Look, they might have still lost the game because Tom Brady is Tom Brady. But the fact of the matter is, it's a hell of a lot harder to score 2 touchdowns in 3 minutes than what he was facing trailing by 8. And they didn't think. You know, I wrote a piece last week, Nestor. Bill O'Brien, the Texans coach, a friend of mine, of course, Coach Brady with the Patriots for a while, was the offensive coordinator for a while. And one of the things he said is one of the keys to beating them is possessing the ball. You just have to possess the ball. You know, the more times he gets it, the more times he sees what you're doing, the closer he is to beating you. And they didn't possess the ball. They threw the ball, and poor Matt Ryan got killed. Now, look, Freeman blew the block. I get the whole thing. It wasn't Ryan's fault. But in the end, if you add it all up, they beat themselves as much as the Patriots beat them. And I'm not taking anything away from what the Patriots did because it was tremendous.
Look, the Patriots have lost 2 Super Bowls, right? So you know that vibe as well. They lost both of those Super Bowls on absolute miracle plays. They've now won 2 Super Bowls on sort of miracle plays in the end zone a couple years ago with the Seahawks. And let's be honest, that Edelman catch was a miracle play, right?
Sure was. Oh, absolutely. You know, but the funny thing about it is, and you know, it's the serendipity of life. If that ball doesn't hit the Falcon player in the shin, it hits the ground and it's over, plays over. You know, what are the chances that the ball's going to come down like that and hit you in the leg and bounce up, rather than either hit you in the leg and bounce down, or hit you in the leg and bounce away from him, or just hit the ground? Well, it's 1 in a million. But I would say this: they keep making these plays, so after a while, it's not an accident. You know, they're in position to do things. When the opportunity comes, they do them. You know, now you're right. You know, they got beat on a catch like that, the helmet catch by Tyree, and now they can no longer complain about that in my mind because they got the miracle catch to even the books.
He is Ron Borges. He has covered football forever and ever. He's at the Talk of Fame Network as well as at the Boston Herald. You should follow his journey out on Twitter at Ron Borges. That's Borges. And he even had a little cup of coffee here in Baltimore. When did you leave Baltimore, Ron?
I left in 83, and did the Birds in 82, and I was covering them in 83, and then the opportunity came to go back home to Boston, so I did. Enjoyed my time there. Certainly loved covering the Orioles in those days with Earl Weaver and everything. That was an easy team to cover, a fun team to cover, and interesting. Not all teams are interesting, but I've been blessed between them and the Patriots and the Raiders. I've covered some pretty interesting guys, and Belichick is certainly as interesting as anybody you can think of. I mean, he is a guy who, if he said to you, you know what, Nestor, we got to punt the ball 15 times to win this game, that's what he's going to do. If the next week he says, we got to throw it 80 times, that's what they'll do. And if he looks at the next team and says, you know what, we got to run the ball 90 times, he'll run the ball 90 times. And that's why he beats these nitwits who say, we do what we do. Okay, you do what you do, and then you go home. And he doesn't do what he does. He does what you have to do to win the game. So he turns to LeGarrette Blount and he says, Sam. He turns to Dion Lewis and he said, you fumbled the ball twice in the championship game. You've been a little shaky here today. Sit down. We're going to play the other guy. You know, that's the difference between him and everybody else. He never says, this is what we do.
Is this inconceivable to you for having, along with Shaughnessy, done the Curse of the Bambino, and the Patriots were woeful, and they were moving to Connecticut, and they were moving to Baltimore, and they couldn't get a deal done, and the way these storylines play. I talked to Sam Farmer from the LA Times about this, about how, you know, for 25 years he chases around expansion football, and what winds up happening is the Chargers and the Rams are in LA, and the Raiders don't have a home. I mean, even here in Baltimore, I mean, the notion that Art Modell would have moved his team here, you come back 25 years later, my dad wouldn't recognize this. In the case of Boston sports, you guys were a lot more fun when you were losers. You know?
That's what some people say, Nestor. You're right. Certainly when you win, and you win as much as the Red Sox and the Patriots have, the expectation changes so dramatically that now they think it's like, it's a federal crime if one of their teams doesn't win a championship, and everybody should be fired, and everything's wrong with the world. You know, what was the chant yesterday at the parade? You know, 6. You know, there's no satisfying people when you're on this kind of run. But for me personally, it's been 2 really remarkable stories to see the Red Sox go 85 years. My team as a kid, it always stunk. They had Ted Williams and nothing else. And
hey! They had my cousin for a couple years in the '70s. Now back off.
They did.
Come on.
I liked him. Got his autograph once when I was a young boy. That was pretty cool. But to see that, and then to see this team, as you point out, and because you were there plenty of times, what a disastrous franchise it was. I remember Parcells the first year he was there telling me, you could take archery practice in the stands and you wouldn't hit anybody. That's how few people went. Now everybody in the world is wearing Patriots hats. It's a little disconcerting for somebody who saw it the way it used to be, but it's been two fantastic stories.
Well, and we all want to stumble into something, right, Ron? I mean, I've been doing this for 32 years now. I was at the News American, that night when the Mayflower vans pulled out and at the Sun, and I saw, Vito Stellino chasing and Herbie Belgrad chasing all these owners around for 12 years trying to get a team back. It's been a miracle to my life that the Ravens have come here and won a couple of championships, and we've only won twice, and, out of the playoffs, we're going into a very choppy water here for Ozzie Newsome and John Harbaugh. And yet, you wind up in this position there where this kid Brady gets drafted in the 6th round. I mean, do you even remember the first time you saw Tom Brady carrying a clipboard around there as just another guy that was carrying golf clubs for Drew Bledsoe at that point, right?
Sure. No, I do. And I'll tell you honestly, and anybody who's honest will admit, he didn't even look like a football player. He just looked like this skinny guy. I mean, you see everybody has seen now the combine running and him standing there without a shirt on. You just look at him and say, this guy's a football player? Really?
I hope he's a kicker, right? Is that what you're thinking,
exactly.
Right? Yeah,
right. I mean, Adam Vinatieri looked more like a football player than he did at that point. But there was one thing that the players right from the start said about him was that, he had this sort of weird little it factor, which, Ty Law went to Michigan, ahead of Brady, so he knew him. And when Brady first came in, he sold him his condo. Ty had gotten a big contract, so he was moving. He sold him his condo for cheap and gave him all the furniture, all that kind of stuff. And he tells the story that when Bledsoe got hurt, Brady told Ty Law, "I'm never giving this job back." And Ty said, and I walked away thinking to myself, who's he kidding? That's a pretty bold statement. Who's he kidding?
He couldn't even get on the field in Michigan, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the kid was exactly right, And now here it is all these years later, and he won't even give the Lombardi Trophy to somebody else, let alone the job back. So it's fantastic. I mean, he's a tremendous player. He's the best quarterback of his era. I don't know how anyone else could argue otherwise. Whether or not he's the greatest quarterback of all time, you can debate him. But whatever list he's on, as Bum Phillips once said about Earl Campbell, doesn't take long to call the roll. So he's a tremendous, tremendous player. I mean, in those last 5 drives where they scored 5 straight times, he completed 78.8% of his throws. And I venture to say, if you and I went out in the backyard of your vast estate in Maryland and threw, 34 passes to each other, we wouldn't complete 78.8% of them, just with air as playing defense. It was a fantastic performance by a lot of guys, not just him. But you couldn't do it without him, that's for sure.
Ron, you've covered this forever from the beginning. And look, I'm on the outside. And look, last week, if you would have sat with me, I would have asked you this tongue-in-cheek. But it's not tongue-in-cheek. I'm being serious because I know you're around the team. Because I joked with everybody last week. I'm like, look, I know they're cheating, and I just don't know what they're doing to cheat. Do they cheat in your mind? I mean, when you think of them in the end, and you'll be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame voters room and all that stuff, and I know they're going to go in, but I would be a guy in there to say, they got caught cheating several times. They were widely speculated as cheaters. And look, Gaylord Perry cheated. You're a baseball guy. I mean, everybody knows he cheated. Right. And they put him in I don't like cheaters, Ron. You know why? I've been cheated. And I know what it feels like when I've been cheated, and I'm not a cheater. So, I'm really offended by that. And, the fact that, Brady and the New England people and the minions and even the media to some degree sort of work some sort of magic to blow it all over. They had a murderer in their locker room. This has been a very interesting period of time to talk about things other than just what they do on the football field when they have guys up in trees with video cameras, right?
Yeah. Now, I would only say this. I'll say a couple things, but one is I'd be careful with a murder thing because a lot of people think y'all had a murderer in your locker room. So
fair enough.
Be careful about that. You'd be very careful about that.
At least if our guy murdered somebody, he didn't keep his GPS on to locate himself at the scene of the crime.
Well, that's true. He was a lot better at it.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
No doubt about that. But putting that aside.
Well, you're going to have that deal with that in 51 weeks, right? I mean, Ray Lewis's name is going to be
actually, that's the beauty of the Football Hall of Fame, unlike baseball. There's no morals clause. So you can be a triple axe murderer. It's just what you did in the locker room and on the field. So unless you kill a teammate, it doesn't matter. And so I think Ray Lewis goes in on roller skates, frankly, and deservedly so. But as far as the Patriots go, do I think they cheat? Here's what I think. I think they push the boundaries of every rule in the book as hard and as long as they can do it. And if you live like that in any walk of life, then you're going to go over the line once, twice, 3 times, 10 times, who knows how many times. But there's no question that if you live like that, if you work like that, that's how you do your business, then it's without question. Now, they would argue my interpretation of the rule, so the Donald Trump interpretation, my interpretation of the rule.
Is this an alternative truth you're about to give me, Ron Borges?
No, it's not. No, it's not. I'm just the reality of what it is. And sometimes when you do that, yeah, you're going to cheat. You know, the ball deflation thing, whether he did it or not, and I happen to personally think he did, and he knows that I think he did. When I say he did, I don't think he's in there with a needle himself, but I think he knew what was going on. I don't think it made a damn bit of difference whether he was throwing a watermelon or a tennis ball.
I think it mattered to fumbling, Ron. I mean, I've talked to enough running backs, and I've seen the statistics, and I've seen the breakdown. That there were 15 turnovers over 10 years that they would have had in key situations that they didn't have at home because they never fumbled at home, and they never fumbled at home because there was less air in the footballs.
Right, legitimate. That's a legitimate issue to raise, and I've always thought that was the real issue, which is why I think if it happened, it probably wasn't Brady. Because the fumbling issue isn't with Brady. It's with their running backs that were fumbling a lot, and all of a sudden they weren't fumbling at all. So, they got a guy named Ernie Adams who would be in the CIA if he wasn't in the NFL, and I would lean toward that direction. So I guess the bottom line is, do I think that they've ever cheated? Yeah, I do. Do I think a lot of other teams have cheated? Yeah, I do. Do I think they push it harder than anybody else? Without question. And people have to make their own determination how much that bothers them or doesn't bother them. I think some of the stuff, like Spygate, was Nixon's White House. It was completely unnecessary. He would have beaten Eric Mangini blindfolded. But when you're a paranoid guy and winning is so important to you, I know at one point Kraft went to him after it was all over, went to Belichick and said, just what kind of an edge do you think you're getting? And he said, maybe 1%. And Kraft said to him, then you're a schmuck, and walked out of his office. So, you don't take that kind of risk with your reputation and your team's reputation, and now they're stuck with it. There's no question about it. I mean, I don't think they did anything untoward in that game on Sunday, but people are always going to wonder just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm wondering 3 years later that we find out that Shanahan's playbook was usurped and blinked. And, I mean, nothing would shock me. I mean, it's almost like this presidency. Nothing regarding where a fact is and where fiction is, and it's really just what can I get away with and what can you prove, and I don't have a lot of respect for that. I'll never cheer for that. I never will.
No, I agree with you, Nestor, but I'll tell you, a case in point was against your team when they ran that weird formation that
they were trying to confuse the officials, and they did, right?
Right, but the fact is, it was technically legal. It was legal. They have since modified the rule so it's not legal, and I didn't like it because I felt it was not in the spirit of the game. But Bill Belichick doesn't give a damn about the spirit of the game. He looks and says, is this technically legal? Yes, technically, under the strictest interpretation of the rules, it was legal. And so there's nothing they could do. Now, Harbaugh went out screaming and yelling and all of that. But the fact was, Belichick would say, well, be better prepared. Nobody's better prepared than him. Nobody's better prepared than Belichick, including on the evil side, because he doesn't trust anybody else either. He thinks that everybody else is doing the same thing. I don't think he's right about that, but that's how he thinks.
He is Ron Borges of Talk of Fame Network as well as the Boston Herald. I remember being on a long train ride with Brian Billick, my partner here on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation. We were going up to New York together for a seminar, and this was right when the Spygate thing happened 7-8 years ago. And I remember saying to him, what really pisses you off about this? And he and I have talked about this publicly. He said the thing that pissed him off the most is, well, y'all cheat, right? I mean, all you guys are cheating, right? And Brian's like,
Right.
no, we're not all cheating. No, we didn't do that sort of thing in my building. We never did that under Denny Green. I never did that under Bill Walsh. That wasn't the way. That's not a gentleman's way to play the game. And to be caught and to be accused of being a cheat or a louse is, for one's reputation. But clearly, Belichick doesn't care about his reputation at all, really, at all.
Well, no, because underneath, and I agree with Billick, by the way, in the general sort of sense of what he's talking about. I feel the same way. It's why I'm uncomfortable with a lot of what has gone on down there. But in Belichick's mind, and sadly he's been proven to be correct, in the grand scheme of the world, 98% of the people don't give a damn how you got rich. They just look at that and say, man, look at that car. The fact that you robbed widows and orphans, they don't give a damn. And it's the same thing with him. He could be the cleanest guy going, following a stickler for everything, and if he doesn't win, he gets fired. And he could be the opposite, and as long as he wins, he keeps the job. And he looks at it that way. I agree with you. Tony Dungy's a dear friend of mine. I know that he wouldn't cheat if you put a shotgun down his mouth. So it makes a lot of guys uncomfortable. That they sort of get painted with the same brush. I've always sort of hated that. I'm sure you're the same way. That, well, they all do it. Well, I'm not worried about all. I'm worried about my son. I'm worried about what he does. How he acts, how he comports himself. I don't want to hear what everyone else is doing. We'll worry about that at some other point in time. And I think that it's that to me is the last refuge of the scoundrel. If he can't defend himself in any other ways, well, everybody's doing it. Well, no, they're not. In fact, I wrote this column one time up here, and you can imagine how it went over. Caused people to be peeved. But the thrust of the column was, if Bill Belichick is the smartest coach in football, which we all think he is, and he knows all things, then how come they catch the smartest guy who's cheating, but they never catch the dumb guys who's cheating? Because they're not cheating. That's why. That's why. It's just, and it's unfortunate. I know a lot of players feel that they don't get all the credit that they deserve. But I would put it in this context, because I know this was a hot topic Super Bowl week as well. Everybody's very upset that Terrell Owens isn't in the Hall of Fame yet. Well, the thing that's killing him is his locker room behavior, how he treated his teammates, in particular his quarterbacks, and the fact that he was fired by every team that he played on. And although I have voted for him personally, I tell those people who get upset and talk to me about it, look, he did it to himself. It's a reputation he earned. And the Patriots now are in the same boat when they cry about it and try to say it's about jealousy.
Well, in Owens, his reputation wasn't as bad as he was. Reputation's one thing. Randy Moss had a reputation, but teams didn't want to give him away. They liked having him around. They liked having him play. The same thing with Terrell Owens. Whatever his reputation was, the record, how much of a dick you have to be to get thrown off the team when you're the best player on the team repeatedly, that speaks volumes, because there's no coach that wants to give a talent away, right?
Sure. I told people this during the week when they or over the weekend when they were still getting excoriated on places like NFL Network about T.O. not being in the Hall of Fame. And I said, look, and I was going to ask you a simple question. What person in whatever industry they're in who gets fired every job they have goes into that business's Hall of Fame? Nobody. Is Michael Milliken in the Business Hall of Fame? No, he's not. Was he a great businessman? Did he make millions upon millions? Yeah, he did. But he went to jail. He's not going to be in the Hall of Fame. Sorry. And in T.O.'s case, it's going to take him a while. But you know what? There's a number of great receivers. Most great players have to wait to get in the Hall of Fame. Chris Carter, all these guys, you can go down the list.
Shannon Sharp had to wait, sure. I mean, yeah, right, yeah.
Sure. Art Shell had to wait. Michael Haynes, the greatest defensive back, in my opinion, I ever saw. He had to wait. Because there's a lot more things going on than you and your individual ego. There's other guys that have been waiting a long time. It's their time to go in. It's just the nature of it. It's very rare that a guy goes in as a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't happen to think it makes a damn bit of difference. You ever been asked what your grade point average was in college? Well, they just want to know, did you get out of go there or did you get out? That's all they care about. And I would venture to say there's never been a Pro Football Hall of Famer who was stopped by some fan saying, how many ballots did it take you to get in?
Yeah.
They just fall over at the fact that they're in the presence of a Hall of Famer. So for T.O. and his supporters to be reacting the way they are. Now, I would only say this, and this is where your feet are going to be to the fire. This is probably a subject for another call, but this is where the feet of the Hall of Fame committee is going to be put to the test. Next year, Randy Moss is up. He's got all the same numbers and all the same problems. His numbers are not as good as Terrell Owens, but his transgressions are just the same. He got fired in Minnesota. He got fired in Oakland. He got fired here. And he got fired in Tennessee because he was a pain in the ass that they didn't want around the team. That's a fact. So if you're going to do it to Terrell Owens, then you damn well better do it to Randy Moss, too. And that's going to be the test.
He is Ron Borges. He's one of our great guests here. Talk of Fame Network runs on Sunday afternoons here at WNST.net. You can follow him out on Twitter at Ron Borges. You can also find him at the Boston Herald. Dude, I love having you on the program, man. It's always a pleasure. Sorry we didn't get together in Houston, but, hey, the conversation was even spicier now that there's been another parade in the ring up there in Boston. And we'll try to figure out baseball season at some point. I'll see you at the Combine and at the owners' meetings, Ron. It's always great having you on.
Great to be here. Enjoy Australia. I wish I was with you.
Further on up the road, baby. Tramps like us. Baby, we were born to run. See you soon, man.
There you go.
There he goes, Ron Borges, longtime sports writer up in Boston, one of my favorite dudes to have on the program as well. Follow him out at Ron Borges on Twitter. That's Borges. Also knows a little bit about boxing, too. I didn't even get into that. You can find me on the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear. I am headed off, but we're headed off to London in September. That road trip with the Ravens now on sale for September 24th at WNST.net under the Road Trips tab. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and I will be socialing while I am away. You can always find us out on Facebook Live as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.